Hello and welcome to episode 17, believe it or not, of the SWR Darts Coaching Podcast with me, Shaun, a full-time PDPA qualified darts coach and JDC Level 2 qualified darts coach and SWR accredited darts coach. So yes, it's official. I am one of the PDPA officially certificated darts coaches. And in this episode, I'm going to talk about my experiences at the PDPA course, what I liked about it, anything I didn't like about it, and what I feel now for darts coaching is going to improve now that we are qualified and recognised by a high-level governing body of darts in the PDPA. So, without further ado, let's get straight into this podcast. So, recently, obviously, the PDPA announced that they were going to do a Level 1 coaching course. And with this Level 1 coaching course, obviously, myself and a few other the coaches that I know quite well, we were rather excited about this. The JDC Level 2 course was good, was very, very good. Didn't really go into the depth I felt that most of us wanted. But, with that, a lot of people obviously always say you can't coach darts. We get it quite regular. The JDC's only aimed at kids and you're trying to coach adults, etc. So the PDPA have looked at this for a long time by the looks of it, from what we found out off the course. And they came up with their own coaching course. They brought in a guy who runs courses in snooker, which I thought was absolutely fantastic. Due to the fact that I'm currently learning to play snooker with a snooker coach. So Chris came in and he was very knowledgeable about not just how to coach and everything around becoming a professional sports coach, but he was very knowledgeable about darts as well, which was great to see. And you could see his passion in the way he put the course across. So the course was in two parts. The first part was an online session, a Zoom session, which was all about the safeguarding element of being a coach. Going into darts coaching, doesn't matter if you're coaching adults, kids, there's that element of safeguarding everything we do. So the first part was the safeguarding side of it, which again, you always learn something. I've probably done, 3 or 4 different safeguarding courses since I became a darts coach. I did numerous safeguarding courses when I was a football coach. And you always do learn something. You always pick something up when you do these courses. It's amazing how it works. But, it was a great opportunity as well to see on that side of it, on my Zoom meeting, people that were on this course. It was split into 2. So the Zoom meetings were across 2 different sessions. And then obviously the actual practical day was again split between 2 groups, a group that went on the Wednesday and a group that went on the Thursday. And I think in total there's 30 of us. And, you're always nervous about who else is going on these coaching courses. So I was aware of, obviously, and we've had him on the podcast, Brian Ivy from Poison Ivy Darts. Brian was doing it with us. Sam Squire Darts Coaching. Sam was doing it. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see Sam. He was on the later Zoom meeting and the Thursday session. Keith from Blackburn Darts Academy, who runs Darts Plus. Superb bloke, Keith is. Again, I missed him, unfortunately, across the 2 days as well. But, in my Zoom session, there was some, fantastic people on there. And, we got Jamie Caven on there, former PDC Pro, Lorraine Wynne Stanley, Tony Martin, again, another former pro player, the partner of Anastasia Dobromyslova, who is a world champion of this sport in the female game. So, you were up there with some high caliber players. And obviously then you got a lot of JDC coaches as well, which was great to see. The JDC coaches, the guys who run darts academies, they are keen to get, more information so they can help more and more youngsters with the game. For me, I'm probably moving, towards the adult game a lot more at the moment. But I love doing my youth sessions still, nevertheless. So again, talking about the Zoom meeting, it was the standard safeguarding stuff, your best practices, poor practices, and it's kind of everything in between, really. I've got an MVQ level 2 in British safeguarding, which I got with the JDC. So, again, you always do learn something, but you do sort of go, oh, not another safeguarding course. But they've got to be done. And it was, again, you've passed it, you get your certificate. UK Coaching Sport England have sort of, helped to fund this course as well. And the course value was really good for me. The value of what we paid to become the PDPA Level 1 qualified coaches was really good. In that, the Zoom, the safeguarding, they didn't really touch on anything that they were looking to do. However, one thing that they did mention, which lit my eyes up, and I know Brian, when I spoke to him in the evening, he said exactly the same, was that they had said that, this is the start. Level 1's the start of the journey. There is going to be a Level 2 course, and the Level 2 will be more in depth, where you get assessed, and you have to go away and do coaching sessions and stuff, and you get assessed. And you can fail the Level 2. I think they said it was a 64% pass rate or something in that area. And then there will be a Level 3 as well, which is in development. So from a coach, from my point of view, I'm listening to this and going, wow, this is the future for me. If the JDC ever produce a Level 3, hell yes, I'm going straight on it. There's no doubt about that. I'm not someone who wants to just, a friend of mine once said about in the football world, there are people out there who just collect certificates, collect qualifications, but never actually really do anything with them. And I've seen them people. I have crossed paths with them people in the football world. But in the darts world, I don't think that is the case. I think there are people who want the qualifications just because they have them, of course. But for me, it's about, offering the best service I can offer as a full-time coach. I've always made no sort of hiding place of the fact that I'm not the best dart player in the world. I can throw a dart without a shadow of a doubt. I've had 2 recent poor performances at Super League when I've been asked to play. Of course I have. But I'm a coach. I'm someone who knows how to coach players. I'm someone who can motivate, I feel anyway, to get them the best out of their game. I did this at football, and I do feel I do this at darts. So for the opportunity to then become a qualified, recognised coach with the Professional Dart Players Association, for me was just like, that's the one. Let's go for this. Let's see what it's about. Let's get in there. So we've done the Zoom meeting, we've done the safeguarding bit, we've passed that. I think it was 3 and a bit hours with a little break in between, but very well delivered by Chris and the other people on there. So then we go to the practical day. It was based in Derby, a place called Cue Ball in Derby, which is where Jamie Caven runs his darts academy from on a Monday night. I'll just give that little plug for him. He's a superb bloke, Jamie is. Great venue. What a venue. There must have been, I didn't really count, I would say there's at least 10 to 12 boards. Fabulous venue. On arrival, I walk in through the door with Brian. I met Brian on the car park before we went in. And, I met there with Peter Manley, Alan Warren Little, and Glenn Durrant. And I'm like, wow, okay, this is real. This is for real here. I watched Peter Manley play Adi Lewis in that game at the Circus Tavern all them years back. Alan Warren Little is a legend as well in the game. Glenn Durrant, I'm not going to lie about it. I've always, wondered about Glenn a little bit. I didn't know him that well. I think we had a little, comment back and forth on Twitter many years back. But my word, what a humble guy, what a brilliant guy, and what a brilliant coach as well. Jamie Caven was obviously there as well. It was the venue he hosts from the venue. And then with the 4 guys who were sort of at the main top area of this PDPA course. And then obviously, you had Chris and I think it's Chris Powell, who's the sort of safeguarding course leader type of thing, who talked to us, ran us through the course. After that, then obviously you have your welcome drinks, getting a coffee and etc. And at this point, all the people start turning up who are on the course. So this is your moment in a way, and I joke about this, but this is your moment then to see who else is on this course, to see any potential rivals to your business. Is there anyone else from the sort of Stoke-on-Trent area for me? Is there anyone local that, is becoming a qualified coach? You don't know. Tony Martin turned up then at this point. It was great to meet Tony. Again, I remember watching Tony play many years back. So it was great to meet Tony. There was a lot of the coaches from Wales, Dan Thomas, who runs an academy and is a full-time coach down there in South Wales. Always great to catch up with Dan. He's a fantastic bloke. And then obviously, there's a couple of guys who do a TikTok channel and run an academy. A few guys who run the JDC. Stuart was there from Sidekick Sports. So if anyone's ever seen the Sidekick Pro Hub, which is a fantastic tool to use in coaching sessions, Stu was there as well. So again, for me, it was great to catch up with Stu. And then just, like I say, other coaches that, are starting academies, are just, getting into the area that obviously I've been a part of for the last sort of 3 to 4 years. You'd have your standard thing at any of these type of courses. You go around, you do your little intro why you're there. I made a little joke which I think fell flat, but that's just me. Then after that, you break away into your sort of course groups. What makes a good coach? What makes a poor coach? And you have to give examples of a good coach. You have to give examples of a bad coach. Bad coaching practices. So basically, people that cancel things consistently. People that, swear on courses, swear in coaching sessions, which I heard of recently, which I was a bit flabbergasted about. And, all that sort of what can make you a better coach? What do you need to do to coach? Do you need good equipment? Do you need the right equipment? To which the case of, well, how do we know what the right equipment is? We're throwing darts. Everyone has different darts. Sometimes the darts aren't right for the people. But, we've got to make sure that we as coaches have got the equipment. We've got a good board for them to use. We've got a proper hockey for them to use, not just a mat or a line. Get a good raised hockey. So that part then was quite interesting. And obviously the group that I was in, we had Peter Manley. Peter Manley was telling us, some stories. And Tony Martin was in there as well. And they were telling us stories about the tour back in the day, which was great, great to pick up these things. And they were telling us about players that they've worked with as well in the past, or players that they've been around in the past, and how they would handle this type of situation if they were put in this situation. Then everyone, we go up in your groups and we all discuss, what we feel is a good coach and what we feel is a bad coach. I felt one of the interesting things was there was a group that said that Sir Alex Ferguson was a bad coach, because of obviously the hairdryer treatment and everything like that. Very much up for a debate, but not on a darts podcast. That one isn't, I don't think. After that, then, we were then told that, the afternoon session was going to be mainly the practical, and that Glenn Durrance and Jamie Caven, they were the two gentlemen that were going to be handling the afternoon practice. So Peter Manley and Warren Little gave us an introduction as the high heads of the PDPA. They gave us their introduction, what they were hoping, the future holds for the coaches of the PDPA. How we need to sort of keep ourselves in high standards, which is what I absolutely adore to hear. From a coaching point of view, I'm always doing my best to try and be the best I can be. And the way the PDPA wants us to act suits my ethics, if you will, and suits my philosophy. So that was really good to hear that. So we broke for dinner, and food was provided by on the course. Myself, I just went and sat in my car, made some notes on the morning session, and I very boringly had my cheese sandwich that I'd made me in the morning. I just like to have my own food sometimes. So we then come back in for the second part of the course, and at this point then we were all given our t-shirts, our tops. If you go on my Facebook page, you can see me in my top and my certificate at the end. But the PDPA are hoping that we're all going to be wearing our own tops. I haven't worn it yet for a coaching session. I wear my own tops when I do my coaching sessions. But if I was to go and be asked to work somewhere as a PDPA coach, I would certainly be wearing my PDPA coaching top. There's no doubt about that. So we all then got into it, and obviously Glenn and Jamie stepped up to the hockey and then gave us, in a way, it's their masterclass. And what I found interesting at this point was their masterclass, the way they start their session, is very much the way I start a lot of my sessions. So for you as a coach then at that point, you're going, hold on, I'm doing this at the moment. Does that mean I'm already doing it right? you always wonder if, as a coach, you're doing the way you should be doing it. I don't know how Brian coaches. I don't know how Sam coaches. I've spoke to people that have been to both of them, and they've given me feedback, and it just sounds like they do it a different way to me. And I always think that. I think anytime you go to a different coach of any sport, really, that coach will approach a session differently and will approach you as the player differently. And I think that's a good thing. I think that is a good thing. So it was great for me to see Glenn and Jamie talk about how they would start a coaching session, how I would start a coaching session. Now, I'm not going to go into the full bits and bobs of the masterclass in this podcast, because one, I don't think it's right for me to do that. I think that's, if you're a coach or you're an aspiring coach and you're looking to go down the PDPA coaching route, I don't want to ruin it for you. I don't want to ruin what's coming in that masterclass from Glenn and Jamie. But I made a ton of notes. I've got 3 pages worth of notes. I am a note taker. I like to take my notes, especially if it's something that I'm passionate about and I like to hear. So yeah, I was made up on the fact that how they approach a coaching session is the same as I would approach that coaching session. Glenn Durrant gave us some of his, little games that he does when you go to him to want for coaching. Different to the way my games that I do and my players that come to me. But again, some of the greatest coaches are the greatest thieves. So again, he actually came to me and told me that he's used some of my coaching bits, the practice routines and coaching bits I put out. He's used them in his sessions in the past, and that was an honour for me. I'm a guy from Stoke-on-Trent who is not the best art player in the world. Feels he's a really good coach though, and I can coach the game. But to then have a world champion, a Premier League darts winner, come up to me and go, Shaun, I love your practice games. I've used them in my coaching sessions. They're great, mate. I was just taken aback. I was like, oh, yeah, I really appreciate that. Thank you, Glenn. And that for me was, that moment where I sort of then lifted my shoulders up a little bit. I did have a touch of imposter syndrome, I felt, at the start of the day. I spoke to my old football best mate and my ex-chairman and everything, and I said to him, I feel like I'm an imposter here. And he sat in room with the likes of Rafa Benitez and high-level players that have played the game. And he's like, I know what you're saying. He says, but you're good enough to be there. If you ever listen to my podcast, I thank you for them words, mate, because you actually did give me that little bit more of a confidence boost when I went back in for the afternoon. And then obviously what Glenn said to me gave me an even more of a boost. After the masterclass had finished, obviously we all break off into pairs and we go to a dartboard and we have to then work with someone. And they did say to us, work with someone who you don't know, which I thought was a good idea, to be fair, to work with someone you don't know. So I could have easily partnered up with Brian. I know Brian. But I partnered up with Dan Thomas. I know, like I say, I've known Dan from the JDC courses. We follow each other online. And, we were having a good chat. And then Dan had to review me and I had to review Dan. So Glenn and Jamie come round and they were and they were saying to Dan, right, let's watch Shaun throw. I didn't do anything different. I did everything the same as what I would normally do. My pre-throw routine was the same. My approach, my deliverance. The way I talk about it, my line, set, focus, deliver, collect and repeat. And I did that. And, the feedback I got was really nice. Dan picked up on the fact that I probably was not throwing the dart with as much power as I could have. But again, Dan picked up on the fact that I'd already got this pre-throw walking in, which was good. Glenn Durrant then offered me advice and said just to give it that little bit more beans on the throw as I would throw it, just because I was a little bit lethargic on the delivery of the dart. I never thought I was, but I understood where he was coming from. And when I did give it that little bit more beans, to be fair, I did hit a 140. So, yeah, straight away I'm like, yeah, I understand where you're coming from there with that. It was then the time for Dan to throw and me to review Dan. So we stand there and Glenn and Jamie said, right then, Shaun, are you ready? And I just went, can I go and grab my book? So would you mind if I do this, how I would review a player if they came to me for a one-to-one? And they both turned around and went, we'd love to see this. So I straight away, I got my book out. I made 3 columns in my book. And I looked across his stance, his alignment, and his mechanics. Because they are the 3 areas I look over in a coaching session when someone comes to me. And straight away, the first thing I spotted was he'd got no pre-throw routine, and he looks down at the floor before he sets up. Even though he's a raised hockey there, he looks down at the floor before he focuses on the target. So I brought that up. He aligned to the right-hand side. So straight away, I was explaining, that if you're aligning to the right-hand side, you're throwing a shorter distance to the 10, across to the 20, and a longer distance across to the 16. Straight away at this point then, I looked at Glenn and Jamie, and they were like, yeah, we could tell why you do this, Shaun. I was like, all right, thank you very much. And, there was other things in Dan's throw, which I won't talk about on here. But straight away there, again, you get that confidence to go, do you know what? I've been doing right. What I'm doing is correct. I sometimes felt that I was winging stuff. When I first started darts coaching, I felt I was winging a lot of stuff at times. You can watch all the videos you want. You can read all the books you want. But sometimes you get to a stage where you're like, am I doing right here? I don't know. The JDC Level 1 gave me the confidence to understand that the way I structured a practice session was correct. The JDC Level 2 gave me the confidence to know that the way I review a video analysis is correct. I did enhance that, to be fair, with their software that they offered. But the PDPA course gave me the confidence to know that I am a good darts coach. I understand what's required as a darts coach. Have I still got learning to do? Yes, of course I have, without a shadow of a doubt. But the confidence to have, ex-pro players tell you that you're doing right is fantastic. And the funniest part is, since I became the qualified PDPA coach, last week I actually worked with a player. So this is March 2025. Just for anyone who's listening 2 years down the line. I actually worked with a pro player last week. Just a little bit about his game. He wanted to just come down and just have a chat about his game. And I was like, straight away, just got a slight alignment issue here, and there's a slight, judder in your mechanic at the end. He was like, oh, brilliant, mate. He said, I love the fact that you've recognised that. Hopefully I can go away and work on that. And obviously I gave him some of my structured practice routines, which I haven't heard back off him yet if they're working for him. But they work for some, they don't work for everyone. Would I have done that if I hadn't got the PDPA qualification? Would I have had the confidence to do that? I think so. But I've now got the full confidence to know that everything I'm doing is to the PDPA standards. It's to the standards that, we should be upholding ourselves to as darts coaches. Are there now more darts coaches on the scene? Yeah, there is. Does that mean it's becoming a crowded market and less niche? I would say yes. Is that a good thing? Potentially, yeah. Because listen, I'm based in Stoke-on-Trent. I do have players travel all over. I've got, as I record this podcast, later on in 3 hours' time, I've got a half-day session booked in with 3 lads who are travelling all the way up from the south. They're coming up from the southeast, and they're coming for a half-day session with me. Would they come to me now if there's a PDPA coach down that way? I don't know. I'd like to be confident and say yes, they probably still would. I've got experience of 4 years doing this, all the qualifications behind me. But at the same time now, there are going to be coaches all around the country. So it's getting less sort of niche to find a coach in a way. Again, good thing, bad thing, I don't know. That'll only show in time, I think. But I'm certainly confident that I'm in the right place. I'm in the right spot at the moment to continue to be full time as I am. After we all did our assessments and Glenn and Jamie sort of ticked off the boxes, if you will, we then went into the the photos, the media photos, and obviously getting our certificates to say that we are now an official PDPA Level 1 qualified darts coach. So I've got it in front of me here. Shaun Rogers has successfully achieved Level 1 PDPA darts coaching course. Signed by Alan Warren Little, the PDPA president, Peter Manley, the PDPA chairman, Jamie Caven, and Glenn Durrant, PDPA directors. And that proudly now sits on my wall in my coaching office. Proudly sits on my wall. Alongside my JDC certificates, alongside my site right certificate. So, Would I recommend the PDPA Level 1 course? Of course I will. Of course I will. It was a fantastic knowledge learning experience. Now, I was only on the Wednesday. On the Thursday, there was a lot more people, obviously, on the Thursday. Sam Squire was on there. Keith from Blackburn, as I say. Lorraine Winstanley took it on. I know John O'Shea, darts player, he was there. I believe there was a couple of darts players in there as well. I'm not fully certain of everyone that was on the course, I'm afraid. The Level 2 course was obviously spoken about and briefly touched on. I'm not going to reveal any more details on here that I've already said, but let me assure you, the moment that Level 2 gets announced, I've already spoken to people at the PDPA, and I can't wait. I can't wait. Because this is the pathway for me. Have I got a final target for my darts coaching? Is something that someone asked me a few days ago. And I went, yeah, I have. I want to get to the stage whereby in years' time, actually about a year's time, I'm delivering the PDPA courses. My friend's currently, as I say, he works as a football coach. He delivers football coaching courses to up-and-coming football coaches. I want to get to the stage where I'm delivering these darts coaching courses to up-and-coming darts coaches. That's my big target. That's where I want to get to. I had this target with the JDC. I mentioned this to the JDC as well. If you want me to come down and help with a Level 1 course, I will happily come down and help with a Level 1 delivery. I want to do that. That's our next step for me for my coaching, I think. Do I want to create my own sort of coaching pathway for people? No. I want to be known as, a mentor with the PDPA or the JDC, offering, going and running these courses, providing the help, my guidance, my knowledge, my expertise to new coaches coming in that are helping youth players. There are darts academies popping up everywhere now. Everywhere there's darts academies popping up. There are people who are offering coaching who aren't qualified coaches. They aren't a PDPA, they aren't a JDC coach. They've played darts for years, so they're going to offer the coaching. I get that, that's fine. People go to them, they can charge what they want. But what I would say is, if there are coaches out there that have got qualifications, look at them. Look at them guys first. Because they've gone through the courses, they've gone through to enhance their knowledge and expertise. Go to these guys who are qualified. And again, like I say, my target down the line for me as SWR darts coaching is to coach as many players as I can, as I always have said, to help as many players get better with the game as they can. But more importantly now, my target is to have a phone call one day to say, Shaun, we're going to be delivering a PDPA Level 1 course. Will you come and help deliver this course? Or Shaun, we're going to deliver a JDC Level 1 course. Will you come and deliver the JDC Level 1 course? That's my next target. That's my next goal. So hopefully I will get there. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. This is just obviously my episode about my experience at the PDPA Level 1 course. There's lots of stories I could say on this podcast, but I'm not going to. There's lots more I could probably go into depth with about, what we talked about, the practice games and stuff. Again, I'm not going to. If you want to know a little bit more about the practice stuff we did, book in with me. Visit me, swrdartscoaching.co.uk. Book a coaching session with me. Come down. You'll be surprised what we get into now in coaching sessions. Also on that basis as well, through my website, I now offer practice sessions. So going off the topic of this podcast now a little bit, I offer practice sessions now. And what these are being requested more than anything. And it's where you as the player can come for either a 60, 90 or 120 minute session with me. And you will get into practice. The coaching element is still there. I will still coach you through stuff. But if you've already been to a coaching session, so you've already had the coaching of your alignments, of your setup and everything like that and your mechanics, these sessions now are the next stage, if you will. These sessions now are about you coming down and getting into some structured practice. Not just with me, but against the computer, against the AI, against the setups and the routines that I've created for you to do. But again, I do get involved. I throw some darts with you. And as I've said a few times on this podcast, I ain't the best dart player, so you've got a chance of beating an actual darts coach. And let's be fair, everyone always wants to beat their coach, don't they? If you've got a coach, you want to beat them. So there's that option there now as well that I offer through SWR Darts Coaching. So it's all on the website, swrdartscoaching.co.uk. Thank you for listening to this episode. My next episode I am going to talk about practice routines and the dreaded word practice drills. I can't stand the word drills, but I'm going to talk about practice drills and what makes a good practice session. That's going to be in the next episode. That'll probably come out towards the end of March 25 into April 25, I hope. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. You can get me on email, info@swrdartscoaching.co.uk. And obviously I'm across the socials. I'm on Facebook, I'm on X, I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, and I do have a TikTok account, but for reasons I won't talk about, I don't use it now anymore. So, thank you for listening. I hope I've inspired you to become a coach, or I've hoped to inspire you to come and find a darts coach. And finding a darts coach will certainly help your game. Until we speak again, just keep enjoying your darts.